GDP growth is 4.1% for the second quarter, fastest pace in almost 4 years. Unemployment at an 18-year low or near an 18-year low. The economy booming.
Yeah.
Why should why should voters look to Democrats?
It's a good number, no matter how you cut it. Of course, we've had 93 months of economic growth since the Great Recession. And, of course, President Obama had 4.1% growth 4 times during his administration. So there's no way you can cut this in a bad way. It's a good thing. I think the long-term question is are wages growing? Are the right people getting the jobs? Are the right people getting the resources? Is there job training? Is America healing and moving together? Is it moving in a different direction? The other thing, of course, too, is you just had Larry Kudlow on who said, trust me, it's going to sustain itself over time. Likely the next quarter is going to be low. We all hope it's going to be higher. And then on top of that, of course, you know, the elephant in the room is the trade war. Whether or not the actions that are now being taken by the president are going to undermine the great work that everybody has done in the last couple of years. And, of course, all you have to do is listen to the farmers who, although some of them are still sticking with the president, are sending the message is you're hurting me. And, of course, the greatest indication that the tariffs are hurting is that they've had to now put $12 billion in place to help sustain it while the pain takes course. And, of course, in Louisiana, we have a $6 billion export economy that's going to be hurt as well. So you hope that the trade war doesn't really impact the economic growth that we're seeing today.
Let's turn to some of the policy differences within the Democratic Party. Last month, I asked one of the most prominent possible 2020 candidates, Senator Bernie Sanders, if ICE, the immigration organization, should be abolished. Here's what Senator Sanders had to say.
I think what we need is to create policies which deal with immigration in a rational way. And a rational way is not locking children up in detention centers or separating them from their mothers.
So he refrained from saying ICE should be abolished. But 7 days later, after fellow possible 2020 candidates Elizabeth Warren, Kirsten Gillibrand, Kamala Harris, others called on ICE to be abolished and replaced, Senator Sanders came out on Twitter and said he now wants ICE to be abolished too. You've said you don't want ICE to be abolished, even though you think there need to be reforms in immigration. Are you concerned at all about your party, as critics say, lurching to the left?
Well, first of all, I don't speak for the National Democratic Party. As you know, I was the mayor of the city of New Orleans. So having said that, I have always talked about governing from the middle. I'm what they call a radical centrist. There are not many of us left anymore. And yeah, it is really important for us to make sure that if we are given the responsibility to govern, that we govern in a pragmatic way, in a big tent way that makes sense. I don't think abolishing ICE is a good idea, primarily because when police departments get out of the way, do the wrong thing, or governed in the wrong way, you don't say get rid of the police department, you reform the police department. We are, in fact, a nation of immigrants. We know that. We're also a nation of laws. And I do think that Congress has been remiss in not passing comprehensive immigration reform. But it does have to be common sense. It has to be thoughtful. It has to protect the border while at the same time making sure that everybody is dealt with in a constitutional way. I do believe very clearly that separating families from children was not a smart thing. It was a cruel thing. That really is not who we are, and there's a much better way to do that.
As a centrist, as somebody who believes in governing from the center, are you concerned to see the Democratic Party, which you and your family have been proud members of for generations, going to the left on a lot of these issues?
Well, I think that what you'll see this with the Republicans and the Democrats. It happens every election cycle. The party themselves will get tested from the left, the middle, and the right. Both parties are going to do that. And, of course, that's going to happen to the Democratic Party, too. It's clear that President Trump is going to be the nominee of the Republican Party, and you will see a family fight on the Democratic side. And you see the party getting pulled to the left. You'll have people from the middle. You have people to the right of the party, and that's the way it's always going to be. If the Democrats want to win, they're going to have to govern responsibly. They're going to have to govern with common sense. They're going to have to think about what people in America want, which is essentially to have a great opportunity and great responsibility and a better chance for themselves and for their kids.
A recent Quinnipiac poll found that 65% of Democratic voters believe that if your party takes back the House in November, they should put impeachment of President Trump on the table. What do numbers like that say about where the Democratic Party will go if you do take back the House?
Correct. Well, of course, right now, because the president's in office, the question is do you like him or don't you like him? And he is the distinguishing factor between and amongst the people that say the nation is so divided. I come from a different perspective. I don't think the nation is as divided as we think it is. If you're on the ground in America on any day, people of different races, creeds, colors, and religions are working together. And that's really what Americans most want. This impeachment talk in my opinion, is premature. I think you have to let these investigations follow their course. Let the lawyers do their job. And when there is evidence of something that significant, then you take that step. But impeachment in a democracy is always the last resort, not the first resort. And running towards that at this point in time, in my opinion, right now, based on what we know, is ill-advised.
It seems like all the energy in your party is with the progressive left. You saw the election, the primary victory, I should say, of Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez in New York. Bernie Sanders is still drawing huge crowds. Is there a market for a centrist Democrat like yourself when it comes to Democratic primary voters?
Well, first of all, I'm not a candidate, and I expect that there will be other people that will occupy the right side of the Democratic Party and the center side, the center part of the Democratic Party. The bigger message for Democrats long term is to do what the Republicans are not doing, which is to be a Big Ten party, to make sure that everybody's got room and that we hear all of these things. There's a tremendous amount of energy. You don't want to quell that. You want to increase it, but you do want to forge it into something that's pragmatic, that's thoughtful, and that can actually deliver for most of the American public. Because, as you know, not everybody in the country is a Democrat. There's a part that are Democrats, there are a part that are independents, and the part that are Republicans. And the President of the United States has the government for the entire country.
You say you're not a candidate. Nobody's a candidate right now.
Correct.
A lot of the potential 2020 Democrats are descending on your city for this big progressive conference. It's called Netroots. Deval Patrick will be there, Kamala Harris, Elizabeth Warren. You're not going to be there. Should your supporters, should people who want you to run, take this as a sign that you're not going to get into the race at all?
No. Well, first of all, I don't intend to run. I've said that many times.
Nobody intends to run until they're running.
That's absolutely true. And when I decide to, I'll let you know. But right now, I'm not planning to do that. What I am planning to do is to continue to talk and be a person that speaks about the direction that the country ought to go in, irrespective of whether I'm in the private sector or the public sector. But no, nobody should take a message from it. I wasn't invited. I didn't really know the conference was going to be there at the time. And, you know, that is what it is. But it's not a sign of anything plus or minus.
All right. Well, your book is great, and congratulations on it. Thanks so much for being here. Hope that he is, quote, open to accepting Vladimir Putin's invitation to meet in Moscow. This, as we learned this week, that Russian military intelligence unsuccessfully tried to hack into the computer systems of vulnerable Democratic Senator Claire McCaskill, and that they are also trying to get into the U.S. grid. My panel is with me now. Congressman Swalwell, you sit on the House Intelligence Committee. What does it say to you that while Russia continues to attack the United States, whether Claire McCaskill or the U.S. grids, that President Trump is willing to have this meeting, whether it's Putin coming to the White House or him going to Moscow?
Sends a green light to the Russians. They believe that the president is more aligned with them than he is with us. And if they believe that, they're going to keep doing that. And right now, you hear our intelligence officials, they don't have directives from this president to stop the interference campaign. So it's really now on Congress. If the executive isn't going to defend the country, then our congressional leaders need to unite and say that these elections belong to us. We're going to do all we can to protect the ballot box.
Where are the Republicans on this?
Well, I think the one chance that they had to rebuke the president on something firm that came out was what we learned happened in Helsinki, when we learned that President Trump discussed the possibility of letting Americans be interrogated by Russian agents. Once we got word of that, the Senate has never moved so fast. They issued a resolution passed 98-0 to say, no, we're not going to do that. Part of the problem with this is that no one really knows what the president's agenda is when it comes to Russia. And so when there's nothing firm to grasp onto, there's nothing firm to reject.
Let me turn the subject on Russia, staying with Russia, but on the question about whether or not there was any help that the Russians offered that was actually accepted by the Trump campaign, which is a charge that the Trump campaign has always denied, and we haven't seen any evidence per se. But already we've started to see this week a change in the conversation where members of Congress and Trump-friendly pundits are starting to say, even if they did do this, so what? It's no big deal. Take a listen to California Republican Congressman Darrell Issa, who is retiring.
If he's proven to have not told the whole truth about the fact that campaigns look for dirt, and if someone offers it, you listen to them, nobody's going to be surprised. There are some things in politics that you just take for granted.
Wouldn't you be surprised?
Look, so let's put a pin in that and go back to a couple of things that the congressman said. This administration has been pushing back on and fighting against interference with the Russians interfering in our elections since the very get-go. Just because the president didn't stand up and announce it Look, the CIA.
still hacking
Listen,
us?
the CIA, because they're going to continue to hack. That's their job, right?
Well,
The bad guys are going to do bad things, right? And there are lots of bad people, and the good guys on our side are stopping them. The NSA, CIA, FBI,
And perhaps President Trump shouldn't be talking about doing a joint cybersecurity campaign with the Russians while they're hacking us. That's another bright line.
Amanda, why not? Why not try to stop them from the inside?
Well,
Because they are inside.
Why not try to stop them
Because
inside?
what evidence do you have that we should
I don't know what information you guys have that I don't have that tells you what the FBI counterintelligence folks are doing overseas, or what the CIA is doing, or what the NSA is doing.
Yeah.
But you guys must have a lot more intel than I do.
Nina, let me bring you in. I'd like to bring back to the topic about some Republican office holders and Trump-friendly pundits changing the level now, saying it's no big deal. So what if the Russians did help the Trump campaign? What do you make of that?
It's definitely a big deal. And had it been President Obama, you know, they would be running around like the hair is on fire. It's a double standard. It's certainly a political double standard.
This has become a familiar routine. It goes something like this. Begin by hurling